And we're live.
What's up? What's up, guys? Troy, it's been a while. It's been a while. Damn.
Damn, way too long time.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just searching for our last video here on
Like
the
it's
corner
two
episode.
months or something. But
And it's actually 2 months when you actually came to Aarhus and we
Right,
made the
for the-
live episode.
for the Super
That
Bowl,
was-
yeah.
That was the last time we uploaded a video.
Yeah.
That 1 hour and 27 video.
It has kind of been dying out lately.
But that doesn't matter. No, like as we agreed in previous episodes, like we're not going to upload consistently every week. We're just going to upload it when there's something good. So the channel has never been dead. It has just been in hiatus because I mean, like, you can't control creativity and output. It will just it just takes time to give good quality discussions and good quality content.
So you wanted to talk about resonance and deep societal transformation.
Yeah, well, not like it's more complicated than that. What I want to talk about is the basics that are underlying this. Like what the video that I sent you about resonance and deep societal transformation is the need that there is in the world. But that is based on sociological observations by a sociologist called Hartmut Rosa in Germany, who I'm writing my master's thesis about, where he observes basically. I mean, we could just start on a very basic level. That the thesis is, or his hypothesis is, that the society is the subject of insatiable growth and acceleration. So that's the basis of his claim. And I will get to the resonance part later, because that's kind of like the solution to this whole hamster wheel thing that he's talking about. But like, I would actually like to start and just to ask you, what do you what do you understand when I say that society is the subject of acceleration, especially in late modernity, but also modernity at the beginning of the 20th century? How do you define that acceleration?
Well, my interpretation of it is that society is setting the pace for regarding everything. When we talk about norms, how we should talk, what we should listen to, of both like people and music trends, and along these lines, right? And if you do not fit into this box, then you are an outcast of society.
Yeah.
And a good way of like seeing on this is like, for instance, how kids' cartoons have evolved the last 20 years. Because
interesting.
Because that shit is insane. Because 20 years ago you had maybe on kids TV, right? You would maybe have like a dude telling a story, right? And in his own pace, like it's going like slow and steady, you know. Slow and steady wins the race. And then you fast forward till today, when you no longer have this storytelling dude, or somebody like talking about the old days and telling stories, right? Instead, you have this extreme, fast-paced, epileptic shit like the Powerpuff Rangers on Cartoon Network and Paw Patrol. And as that's not enough, then let's add in amp up techno music at the same time.
Yeah. That's actually a perfect example of one of the areas that Professor Rosa is outlining in his extensive theory. That is his book that is called Time Structures of Modernity, the Zeitstrukturen der Moderne, where he outlines all the various processes and products, everything that is the subject to acceleration, and TV shows, of course, is part of that too. You can see that also in intros of TV shows, like they progressively, like just over the past 30 years. If you see, for instance, the Friends intro, very concrete. The Friends intro is 1 minute long, and then for fast forward to 10 years later, the intro was maybe like 30 seconds long, and today they're only like Breaking Bad, they're 10 seconds long, because the narrative needs to progress faster and faster. We don't have time for intros anymore.
I like to point out it's semi depending on who's making the show. If you are looking at HBO shows, I believe their intros has like been the consistent amount of length. If you like check out the Sopranos intro, the Wire intro.
But the Sopranos is from the zeros. That's not a new show anymore, and the Wire is from the 90s. So that is still as long as, for instance, Friends or other old shows.
Okay, but then let's take Boardwalk Empire. Then that's also like from the has to be like from the mid 2010s or something, 2010s.
Yeah.
That's not as like 10-second long intro.
No, I'm not saying that it's and again, as it is with this theory, of course there are exceptions, but the as it outlines, there's most shows, they are subject to this densification. The show is becoming more dense, more compact. The narrative is speeded up.
Imagine that, man, that you're making a show for some fucking messed up monkey that is sitting there fapping, screaming, "Give me the show now!"
Yeah, and of course, nothing against Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is one of the best shows, but in terms of the intro, it is also subject to this sort of. I mean, now we're talking just specifically of intros, not the narrative of the show. But we're just talking about that the intros are actually getting shorter and shorter in order to get to the narrative faster. So that's what we mean by acceleration in terms of movies and TV shows.
Where do you see this acceleration taking us in the future of society?
Yeah, this is actually a very good point to progress to the next to the more advanced explanations of acceleration, because acceleration at its core is a process is rooted in what Rosa calls Steigerungslogiken. So it's growth. It's forced growth, and a lot of that has to do with the logic of capitalism that is in Western societies. That Western societies cannot sustain themselves unless they consistently grow. That's why we have these norms of being of consistently having to be 2% better in the what is called the BNP, right? We constantly have that norm of a country as a nation has to grow its economy by 2% every year, otherwise it's in decline. That's an economic concept.
You're talking about gross domestic product.
Yeah, gross domestic yeah, exactly. I was just knew the Danish word for it, or the Danish acronym. But the thing is, modern societies, especially Western societies, but certainly also societies like Iran, for instance, that is the same that's happening there, is that they are subject to what Rosa calls dynamic stabilization, which means that they can only remain stable through consistent growth, through producing more products. And now we're getting into the various areas that are accelerated. So that's mostly products. Products need, every year, a company needs to produce more quantifiable, more products than the year before. Social processes, communication needs to be communicated more than the year before. And logistics, the transportation happens at a faster rate, like the year after the next.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, I'm finished in 10 seconds.
Okay.
So those are the main areas of acceleration. Of course, there are more processes than just this, but the main areas are production processes. Ford's assembly line was a perfect example of a rapid increase in acceleration on that. Then we have increase in communication systems. For instance, you can send 100 emails today, while you were only able to send like five letters in the 18th century, over a time period of 1 month maybe. So you can send many more emails now than you sent letters back then. And then the last one is logistics. It takes way less time to transport something over 100 kilometers than it did in the 18th century. So that's those three areas: production, communication, and transport.
Right. Now what I wanted to jump in and say is that all this acceleration, it comes with a trade-off. And that is, I don't think that's a specifically good trade-off, because by thinking that you need to like produce better, you need to produce faster, you need to come up with more output, and all this shit, right? The trade-off is let's take denim jeans, right? American product, or at least once it was, right? Levi Strauss and all that. Levi Strauss moved to California, had this little shop making clothes, jeans, bed sheets.
That's actually funny that you mention denim jeans, because I think Rosa is also using that as an example in one of his talks on YouTube.
I can imagine. And then what happens? Then you have the NAFTA trade agreement, like the North American trade agreement, right? Which allows for like cheap imports and stuff from other countries. And all of a sudden, the denim factories move from the U.S. to Mexico, Bangladesh, China, Taiwan, right?
Globalization, outsourcing and globalization, yeah.
Right, and all of a sudden you have massive amounts of warehouses and factories in America just sitting empty. And thousands of people laid off because now there's no more denim jeans for you to produce, because hey, we found somebody to do your job cheaper for $1.50 an hour.
And that's because and that's another one of the areas that is heavily accelerated too is technology. I forgot that actually. That's actually a critical one, because why does this happen? Because technology is one of the areas that is heavily accelerated, actually exponentially in some cases. In the case of the email, there you can actually observe an exponential curve in emails sent out over the past just 50 years.
There you also have globalization with all of Apple's phones, for instance, being produced in China and etc.
But not only communication, technology is not only rapidly accelerating communication, it's also rapidly accelerating the production facilities, not just in the Western societies, but also in China, and especially in China. Actually, that's where it also happens. This acceleration process, and what happens, and this is now it gets interesting, because now we get to what happens when acceleration processes in China are just happening unlimited without like a government, because especially in China the problem is that they can just do this because they have an authoritarian regime. That's where our Western democracies are falling a little short, because in order to implement new technology or like radically new things, we need to go through a democratic process, and democracy in our time is actually working very slow.
Right.
And and compared to acceleration, that's actually a good thing, because
in China you just have one dude saying do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that is furthering the acceleration, because it doesn't need to go through that many democratic processes. But that also means that they're even more reliant on growth, and you can see that like production facilities are shooting up like crazy, and they're like fapping out products faster than we can consume them in the Western world. And what happens with that, and this is where it gets interesting, because of this acceleration, and this is one of Rosa's other hypotheses, is that acceleration creates alienation. And why does it do that? First I want to hear your take on why do you think that alienation is the product of acceleration. But before you give me an answer to that, you can see it in the empty production facilities in the US, which are now alienated. There's nobody able to work there anymore, because everything is happening in China now.
Or I was going to say a more local example would be Danish Crown's slaughterhouses in Denmark.
Yeah,
which is being closed down one by one.
But first, I want to hear your take on why you think that as an axiomatic, what do you call it, entails. How do you say that?
Presumption.
Presumption. As an axiomatic presumption, we can say that acceleration will create alienation.
Well, I think my interpretation of that would be that it's becoming more and more difficult to keep up, right? To keep up with the pace of the acceleration. So when these shops or factories or whatever close in order to outsource the jobs to someplace that is cheaper, what happens then to all the people that used to have those jobs? Now they're alienated. They are left without a job, holding their dick, and being left to their own devices to find a new job, right? And I guess like lucky for you if you live in a place like Europe where you have a safety net to catch you and like give you some money, give you some shelter if you don't have anything. But damn you if you live in America and you get nothing.
Yeah, that's true, and that's also actually why Hartmut Rosa is one of the people. He doesn't consider himself political, because science, especially sociology, transcends politics. But we can't deny that there's that sociological science and investigations can have applications on the political level. That's why when he's finally asked to take Stilling to get involved with politics, he often considers himself a leftist, and that's because he actually often argues that a universal basic income can be beneficial, because in the future, in the modern in the world, also when AI is taking over a lot of these jobs that require intellectual capabilities, then a lot of then there will be actually a dual state in which the employment will increase, as well as the lack of what does he call it? the lack of jobs. No, the lack of Fachkräfte. Wait, this is hard when you are encircling between 3 different languages. Let's see, in English. Let me see. So yeah, a shortage of skilled workers. So the shortage of skilled workers is increasing, as well as the unemployment. And how can that be? Because our modern society is very good at educating people. Actually, that's what one of the areas that's also accelerated, and that's actually good.
It is.
But the problem with that is we create very much a specialization. I mean, you can't have someone who is educated within the humanities, for instance, maybe that, but you can't have someone who is a neurosurgeon who is suddenly going to work with driving a bus, for instance.
Here's my take on it.
In healthcare,
the problem is that you will eventually have like one person being able to do the job of 100.
Yeah.
And an
exactly.
example I have from that in real life, Denmark, is the job I had previously before I started where I am now.
Yeah.
Then we were like 40. We were like 42, 43 temps at this warehouse that was like being built up, and like going to ship shit around the world, and going to be like big stuff. In 1 year, we went from 42 to 10, and
Wow.
a year after I had quit there, it had gone from 10 to 1 temp left.
Yeah.
And what was essentially happening here was that they were getting these robot forklifts to do the picking and making fulfilling the shipment orders, right? So there was really only need for one person left to simply just load up this one truck a day, right, and maintain the machines.
Yeah.
So imagine that, man. It went from being 42 men needed to 1.
Yeah, and that's why Rosa is arguing as well for universal basic income, because and this is actually where we can look to another philosopher in Germany who lived during the 19th century, who is actually called Arthur Schopenhauer, who is arguing that that humans have essentially what he calls an iron will, or like that they have a will. So his main work is called The World as Will and Imagination, and the one of the hypotheses is that mankind has a consistent will to always want more, which means if we apply that to this universal basic income, I mean, even though a lot of liberals and a lot of conservative people probably will not want to hear this, because there will always be this notion, well, if you just get money from the government, there will not be incentive to work anymore. But that's actually patently false, because because of the status that is associated with receiving this public money from the government. You can also see it in Denmark. People who are on these what we call kontanthjælp, who get this cash help, they are socially put into a box where it's socially discredited, where you're actually socially outcast, where you said it yourself in the beginning, where you are an outsider, you live on the margins of society, and that by no means, that is actually, in a way, that's actually worse than not receiving money from the government, because you're constantly bombarded with this judgment from the rest of society. Even though your existence is secured, you don't have to fear that you will starve to death.
Like, for instance, I hate this whenever like you start a conversation with a stranger, right?
Yeah.
And like typically this was like for me yesterday I was at the barber, right?
Yeah.
And a woman starts fucking asking this question like, so what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
And I hate this because what you do for a living does not by far define you as a person. If you can follow my train of thinking here,
Definitely.
because when you have a job, you are essentially just putting your body or your mind at disposal for the net sum of some money.
Yeah.
Not unlike a sex worker. Um, but does that but would you like define a sex worker as just that? Because, well, that's what you do for a fucking living, honey.
No. Of course, that is to reduce the identity of an individual
Exactly.
to their work, and
Exactly.
actually, but that can be explained actually in not according to Rosa's theory, but that's another philosopher who's called Richard Precht, who has actually written 5 large books in Germany about work and about why Western democracies, and about the value that Western democracies put on the concept, on the phenomenon of work, and it's actually a lot of the substance in that theory is that no society in the world is actually putting as much is actually praising the work culture as much as Western democracies, or for instance during the industrialization, where people frequently worked 70 or 80 hours in some mine or some in some mountain, or in some power plant, or working with coal, or at a production facility producing some crap product that was because of capitalism. And that's just because of industrialization, that there has been this notion that, well, we center our lives around work. But the interesting thing is, if you go to other societies in the world, like, for instance, the nomadic people, in their culture, it's not about work, it's about traveling. And so if you do some work, like go give your donkey food, or go out and search for food for your donkey or something like that, it's not considered work, it's just considered a part of traveling with your people. So
No,
it's a radically different way to see the world.
That's a way more healthier way of seeing the world, because you take like, for instance, the same conversation, right, hypothetically,
just one more thing, and they're also not in a lot of these cases, in a lot of other cultures, they're not expecting to be paid either. They're just expecting their society to provide what they need in terms of food, instead of being paid, and that's it.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go back now. Like, let's take like the same conversation, and then you're saying that like, oh well, I'm unemployed, and then the conversation fucking dies.
Yeah.
Because and you're left there feeling like some fucking criminal punk, because you can't say that you have a job or something extravagant that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's because of this glorification. Yeah, you could call it glorification of the work mentality, of work being the center of your life, and that's just in many cases, that's just it's not like I call it a glorification, and I call it an over emphasis on work, because like, I've studied humanities now for the past 10 years, I think, no, since 2017, so that is almost 10 years. 7 years at least. And if there's one thing I know is that the human life, the human existence, is a composite of way more than just work. You understand?
Well, yeah. I mean, like say that you go on retirement when you're 60, 70, or 80 years old, right? What, you just die then because you don't have a job?
There's way more ways that a human can interact with the world, and can and not just interact with the world, but can experience the world than through work. And actually, this is now we're pretty much getting down to the resonance part of Hartmut Rosa's theory, because we've already talked about acceleration, alienation, which is the problem, but the solution. And now I'm actually opening up my Bible during this semester. It's not the Bible, but it's the, you could call it the Bible of sociology of Hartmut Rosa's sociology. He calls it a sociology of world relationships. So how can a human relate to the world? And that's what he calls his book, and that the book is called Resonance. And I don't know if if it actually is available in English yet. That could be my, if I'm ever going to write a PhD, and that would be translating this book into English. But no, actually, I think it is. It is translated already. It costs 550 kroners.
All right, so it's about $80. $80.
But you can buy that, I believe, on it's on Amazon too. I can actually send you, but I'm just going to read the first the table of contents, because that's already very interesting. Already in the table of contents, he outlines what he calls spheres of resonance. And maybe if this is if we'll do 1 hour of this podcast, we can get to the concept of resonance.
Let's just do like 40 minutes, because I gotta take a
piss
and stuff. But
but we can do another episode of this, because you could do an entire episode of resonance. Actually, you could do a whole series. We could do 10. We could do 100 episodes on resonance alone. But just for now, I will go through the resonance spheres, which is basically ways that a human can interact and can stand in opposition to the world and can experience the world. And those are horizontal spheres, family, friendship, and politics. And just stop me if you want something elaborated. The diagonal spheres of resonance are object relationships, which are music. And then there's work. So, of course, you can resonate with your work. And that's what a lot of people in our Western society do, is we praise work as being an object, or we praise because it's a part of the diagonal resonance sphere, because it's like, well, we get paid for work. You can really you can resonate with your work, because it's like, it's interesting to work with something, but it's only one of these resonance spheres, right? Another one is school, and that's what I've resonated with for the past ever since I started in high school. Started to really be interested in knowledge and accumulating knowledge. Then the next thing is sport and consumerism. So if you go for a run, you physically resonate actually with because you put yourself in motion, right? And you because you run, then you get this runner's high. And then there's consumerism. You go out, you spend money, you purchase something, that gets you some sort of a high as well. And that's actually what modern marketing is exploiting on the drastically and dramatically, by
I've never
pushing products
I know
on
that,
us,
I know
so
that,
we get that high.
I've never understood that that people can get off on being like, today I'm gonna spend a lot of money. Oh my god!
But
Now I feel better.
yeah, but it is because it is a sphere of resonance where people can feel like they they that they actually are in control. I mean you have money, that's a thing that you can control, right?
It's doom spending.
Yeah, it is, and that's what I'm getting to. But then you spend it on something. But the thing is also, now I was like getting to it. Consumerism also means that when you buy the product, guess what? You actually have to use the product too, because otherwise it really is just doom spending your money on something that you will never use. And I mean, like you can see that on countless things. Look, how many books do you have on your shelf that you've never read? Or how many? Yeah, we were talking about this before. How many games do you have on Steam that you've never played before? That you've just bought because they were on sale?
I think I've like tried most of the games that I have bought.
I have a lot that I haven't tried yet, because there's always like you think I'm going to this is on sale, like 50%.
I will say like I probably like have a lot of shit on Steam that I got for free that I haven't tried out, and a lot of stuff that I was gifted for like 50 kroners or $5 that I also haven't played.
Or just how many single malt scotches do you have on your shelf right now that you've bought that you still haven't consumed yet?
Free.
You don't have more? You had a collection at some point.
I had I had a collection. But then when you have like a bunch of unopened single malts behind you, then it's really easy to like look at it and be like, meh, I should try this.
But the point is that there is a lot of but okay, so maybe you're actually quite good at buying stuff that you then also have to consume, and that's part of the resonance fears, that if you buy something you also need by all definitions to use it.
I mean, like,
because otherwise there's no point. There's no point.
Look at the profanity of it. Like if I had like continued and fast forward to 10 years, and I would be calling you and say like, "Hey Troy, check this out. I have 1,000 unopened bottles of single malt." And you would be able to say like, "Okay, cool, but so the fuck what?"
And that's the acceleration of production facilities. That is actually the capitalistic forces that are in play. That because technology is making it possible to specifically target products to customers who have the money for it. We're so optimized. Our society is so optimized and so accelerated that it's easy to get the products to get a lot of products out to a lot of customers who have a lot of money, but guess what? They often don't have the time to consume it, and that's where the resonance fear consumerism falls short, because we actually don't live in a culture of consumerism. We live in a culture of buyerism, and that is capitalism. Capitalism is not consumerism.
This is something I wanted to say something about. You know, when we were like talking about like having a job, right? I would argue.
Another good example. Sorry for interrupting you. Is clothes. How many fucking clothes do you have that you don't wear anymore, or shoes?
Nothing. I wear everything I have, but I don't have a lot of clothes.
Yeah, okay, but then again, you're probably one of the better ones in this resonance field to consume ethically, or to consume sustainably.
But what was I saying? People have jobs. At least I believe so. I believe people have jobs for 3 reasons. One is money, because you can't buy shit if you don't have any money. That's your purchasing power, right? The second reason is productivity, because you need something to be able to feel that you are a productive member of society, right?
Yeah.
And the best way of doing that is doing something and getting paid for it, because then you can say what I just said before this. I'm having a job and I'm making money.
Yeah.
Going into the fray. And the third reason is the social aspect, though this is mostly dormant in most workers' mind, I think, because I don't think like a lot of people that are working are like thinking about that you're going to work and you have an actual chance of like socializing, you have an actual chance of like talking to people at work about different topics. I think this is something that is being neglected by most people until like they're either fired or they quit the job or they lose the job, because then you will all of a sudden have time to reflect on what you had but neglected.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
And then I wanted to say to now like look at the picture I sent of the American dollar.
About the purchasing power of through the years
of the US dollars. In like 100 years ago, $1 today would have equaled $26. That is a fucking insane rate. Which
in what? Okay.
Yeah, you understand?
What is? Can you explain quickly what is purchasing power actually to people?
The purchasing power is how much you can actually buy for your money, right? This has become like less and less and less, specifically in the last few years, where we have had corona, we have had inflation, right?
Yeah, because inflation is the concept that that always shows how much the money is worth. And that's inflation is the expression for the purchasing power.
Yeah, and it is deflating your purchasing power, right? It's less and less shit you can buy, right?
Yeah.
And then
but that also has something to do with how much money there is in circulation.
Yeah, and
if the government just is printing more and more money without there being resources for it, actually mainly resources, because and that's actually something that I would like to know more about, that I've never really understood. Is because of course resources is physical resources makes sense, that the more resources there are, and compared in the ratio of how much money there's in circulation, if there's a lot of resources and there's few dollars in circulation, then the inflation will be very low.
Yeah, when you had an actual gold reserve equaling the amount of cash out there in the world for that currency.
But what about services? I mean, services are more abstract, because you can't, for instance, like someone who has taken an education within, or a craftsman, or a haircutter who's giving you a haircut for a certain amount of money. That's a service that they provide. That's also somehow attributed to money, and there's also a purchasing power and inflation in that. And of course, people who, like me, who produce knowledge, or not specifically me, but like a professor who's doing research, who is outputting a paper that is knowledge for a university, that also has a certain value, and is a part of that inflation. But how do you calculate that
it's difficult when you can't put money to a price tag on it. But if you were like saying that you were selling the service somehow, then it's easier to like set a value to it, because then you would typically just follow, like the prices that are being set by others, and then mirror that. Now, like look at the bottom of that picture. It says $26 and $14 for a box of 30 Hershey chocolate bars. Now, this example is from 2020. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Just 3 years before that, I bought an actual box of 30 Hershey chocolate bars in New York City.
Yeah.
The price for that then was only $17.
Wow.
Right, so that puts a perspective to like how fast this is actually moving, right?
And that actually ties very well together with our theory of acceleration, because and that's economic acceleration that is rooted in this consistent growth, what he also calls forced growth. We live in a society of forced growth, where societies, where modern Western democracies, or modern societies can't sustain themselves unless they grow. They consistently grow.
Yeah.
And that's because we are, in a way, the problem of modernity, and also in a much more dramatic and intense fashion, the problem of modernity and late modernity is that we, because of because of this, this acceleration comes from what? I don't actually know where it comes from right now.
Well, it is a mix of different factors. You know, it is all the factors like that is coming with the inflation. Then it's everybody setting up the prices according to the inflation. And then you have everybody setting up the prices just because you can, right? But the interesting thing here that you're missing is, in order to get order to get the real inflation numbers around in the world, right? You need to like look at each sector individually.
Yeah.
Like
and
for instance,
also, I can argue for this more historically, though. This goes back. I truly believe, and also actually Hartmut Rosa is outlining this in his book as well, that a big part of the reason for acceleration goes back to the Enlightenment, where people got more, they got more enlightened, they got more power over the aristocracy, which had been the power for a long time, ever since, go back to ancient Rome, go back to the Middle Ages, where it was the king and the noble folk that had all the power, but the rest of the people were poor, and they were kept in the slums, and that also meant that many more people would die. Health was bad, but that also meant that the pace of life and the acceleration was at a much lower pace, because people were dying much quicker, and there was simply much less people to actually keep this acceleration going, and that's a bad thing, of course. But now we have reached a point where there's so many people, and where there's so much optimization going on, and so much, and the world is moving at such a fast pace, that the fast pace, which once in Enlightenment, the fast pace was good to get people out of poverty, but now it has become a problem because it is getting too fast for itself.
Look at the next picture, right, where we have isolated the fast food prices in inflation. Where you see in the US, McDonald's has raised their prices 100% in 10 years. And Popeyes 86%, and so on. And now I don't.
And that's nothing else than what we've already talked about. That is because all these restaurants are not. They are not an exception to this rule about acceleration. They also, just like the national economies, they also need to adhere to this growth, because guess what? If they don't grow, if they don't set up their prices, then guess what? The competitors, if McDonald's doesn't do it, then Popeyes will do it. Or Subway will do it, and then they'll get outpaced by the competition. And then at the end of the day, you will go out of business.
I think like it's a mix going on there about like that the products needed to make You know, like these meals at McDonald's, Popeyes, Arby's, Burger King, and all those are going up in price.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there is a factor there where somebody's saying, like, look, there's this big inflation going on. Now we also have an excuse to set up the prices further.
Yep. I have to just get some water.
But we can end it here. We have almost like an hour.
Because I do have two more things at least that I wanted to get through, and that is the vertical resonance spheres, because we've talked about the horizontal and diagonal resonance spheres of how a human can be in relation to the world. You remember?
Yeah.
And we still have the vertical ones, which is four things: religion, and that has been a big factor. Like not so much anymore, but all the way through the Middle Ages, back to actually back to year zero when religions were created.
I think people want to make more sense of things. They want they want things to have an explanation, and today, you know, religion isn't enough to make that happen.
And actually, religion during the Middle Ages, but also like from actually the height of the Catholic Church and the Church in general, the Church's power was between the Holy Roman Empire from 1000 and then until the Reformation around 1500 with Luther.
Yeah,
with Luther.
When most people were at their lowest and shittiest in Europe.
Yeah, and that shows you the resonating power of religion. What religion can make people do, because especially if you're not educated, then religion is probably the easiest way to get people to adhere to a higher calling, but not just that, actually satisfy people. I mean, people knew that people were dying all around them, but they also accepted it much more easily than we accept our situation with inflation and with I mean, what do people believe? People are like enraged today. People are alienated today because they don't know what to believe anymore. And so back then it was like, well, there's a God. All I have to do is to go to Sunday church every week and say my prayers. If I'm a Catholic, I get my sins confessed. If I'm a Protestant, then I just go to church every Sunday, and then Jesus will forgive me, and I can be at peace with that. And that's why religion has been able to be such a strong presence through 500 years of history, probably even more than that, because it gives people peace and not this enraged, frustrated alienation that we have today, where people don't know what to believe anyway, because people are not spiritual anymore.
Yeah, that plus there's a lot of hopelessness going on, right?
With
the middle class vanishing, with it becoming harder and harder to get by and buy a house and, you know, like do all the things that used to be normal just a few years ago.
And that's why it is a resonance sphere. But that's just that. Another one, another resonance sphere which you can resonate with, which you can use to unalienate yourself, because essentially alienation is the opposite concept of resonance. So you have this opposition, alienation across from resonance.
Yeah.
So resonance is the answer to our problem. That's you asked me about the future of acceleration. If we can make this theory, Hartmut Rosa's theory, available to the future, then resonance is the possible answer. And another resonance sphere is nature. You can, if you go for a walk, you can take in the blue sky, the green leaves. You can really be at peace with nature. That's another way you can resonate.
Well, that's also what is said by some to be the strongest weapon a man can have, which is silence, because it allows you to go into the forest or a hike or whatever, bringing your water, a knife, and it allows you to be able to listen.
Definitely.
And then find find out like, okay, that's what's going to
And
be the next
wow,
part of my
you-
life, right?
You actually just outlined what resonance is. Resonance is a listening relationship. You listen to the other, and then you expect that the other is talking back to you, is giving you an answer. So listening and answering,
Yeah.
and not just listening and answering, but you also expect and there's also a transformation between two subjects. Subject one says something to subject two, gets transformed, and then subject two says something back that is unexpected of subject B. Now it gets very abstract,
Yeah,
but that's
like
basically
I
how
think-
resonance.
I think you could also like take it in the way that like person A says something upsetting to person B, right? Person B
yeah.
person B chooses not to react.
That's
just-
alienation.
Yeah,
That's alienation.
but wait, let me finish. Person B chooses not to react. He just
Yeah.
takes it home, right? Ponders about it the whole night and goes to sleep. And when he comes back to person A the next day, he will have a thought out answer
Yeah.
and a response instead
Yeah.
of just abruptly reacting to something because somebody just demands, or something just demands a reaction. Doesn't mean you have to give a reaction, at least not right now.
Yeah, exactly. But we can get into that much more in
a later one.
Future podcast. The last two resonance spheres are art. Of course, you can see that with billionaires who buy ridiculously expensive paintings for $100 million.
Just because
Why
he
do-
can, just because
Why-
he can, not because he likes it.
Yeah, and this is actually goes back to our consumerism from before. They have the money, but how often do they actually get time to sit down and look at it? I mean, there's certainly millionaires that do that, but probably a lot of millionaires just do it because in order to invest their money in something so they can diversify.
Yeah.
And that's bad, because it's like it becomes that's capitalism at its worst.
I mean,
that's capital, because then you don't consume the thing, you just make a dead purchase.
I thought
basically.
I thought like 50 Cent had a brilliant point about this, because
Yeah.
he was asked, why don't you buy a yacht like all those other super celebrities in LA?
Yeah.
And he was like, the fuck do I need one for?
Yeah, exactly,
he-
exactly.
And he explained it with that he was out doing tours, he was out doing this, right, and other shit around the world, right, for over 190 days a year, right?
Yeah.
So then he explained it back to him, like, so what the fuck would happen to that yacht then? Huh? It would just sit racking up fees, expenses, maintenance, and like while he would never be able to use it.
Yeah, it's true. And then the last resonance sphere that you can step into the world with is history, through history. And of course, you have talked to Morten, who was earlier on our podcast, who is particularly resonating with this in that he studies it as also. There's actually two resonance spheres, both school, which is university. He resonates very much with that. Resonates with the history. He can get really passionate about talking about history.
When you say,
then he has and his work. He's also working with historical. He's actually working with transcribing old king books in Denmark, and that's also so. He has three big resonance spheres that he's interacting with.
When you say resonating, you mean like connecting to it?
Connecting, listening to it, listening to it, learning from it, letting it transform you, but also putting something out. So you're also contributing. If, like, for instance, if it's history, then you're also trying to affect history by learning about it, and then affecting it would be like writing a paper about it. Then you put take some knowledge from history, and then you use your own words to inform society about that piece of history. So that's a resonating relationship.
All right.
Too. But one more thing, we were talking about this is the last thing on the what do you call fallrepet? I don't know if you know that expression in Danish.
Yeah.
So that is, we talked about universal basic income, and I would just like to say, because I already talked about like how like a lot of liberals, especially and conservative, always have the argument it takes away the incentive from wanting to work for real. But I've already covered.
I feel the opposite. I feel like it is going to become a necessity in the future. Because you're
universal basic income.
Yeah, because you're looking.
That's what Rosa is arguing too.
You're looking
actually by doing this, you are mitigating. You're securing people's existence because there simply will not be work for everybody in the future because of AI.
Not only that, but I mean, like you're looking at like maybe 50% unemployment. Globally the next 100 years, right? While
there's still actually a lack of skilled workers,
yes,
and that's because people are educated wrong, because we don't know how to educate people in the right in the right disciplines.
Without universal income, I think it would be. I think the bar to the moral bar and the bar to become a criminal would be severely lowered, because I know if I couldn't get a job and my option was to just be some homeless dude with no money, or to be a criminal and then have a chance to like at least earn something, then I'll be a criminal and do whatever it takes.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a whole section here about moral and Schopenhauer we could go into, but we'll have that next time. The human moral. That's that we could do 3 podcast episodes on that alone.
Yep.
But I think the good way to end this is that on this that I just wrote down half an hour ago. It is the fewest people, and this is just me. This is not anyone.
Just read it.
It is the fewest people in the world who don't want to do anything. So, which means that unless you're a psychotic, unless you're a psychopath, or you're an inmate in a prison, most people will want more than just universal basic income. They have, again, Schopenhauer, they have the will to want something more.
Absolutely.
And that's the beautiful thing about being a human being. We want more. But that is also a curse. But I think let's end it on this note, that it's actually beautiful, because it does. You can have periods where you don't want to do anything, where you just want to celebrate your milestone or something, but eventually you will want more.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be more money. It can be more recognition. It can be more. You want more. Wait, I wrote it down here to more.
I gotta go, man. But thank you for letting me be part of the podcast. We're 1 hour and 3 minutes now.
Okay, but I will just finish it here alone. So thank you for this one, and then we'll see each other in the next one.
Yep. Out.
All right. So as Patrick is leaving here, I will just end the podcast by outlining the more what more things there are that humans, what more elements there are that humans will want to achieve, because money is by far not the only thing that a human can desire. Money is only. Also, if we have the Maslow's pyramid of needs, where you have where you have the bottom part, which is actually, I'm just going to find it here, Maslow's pyramids of needs, where we have 5 layers, where we have physical needs, then we have security, then we have love, then we have appreciation, and then we have self-realization or self-actualization. And the bottom one, physical needs, that is breath, food, water, sex, sleep, physical balance, and excretion of bodily liquids. The next one, and this is actually, and then we have at the top, which is security, body, work, resources, moral, family, health, residential residence, yeah, and it's actually only these two that money can buy. Everything that's above that, the middle layer is love, friendship, family, sexual intimacy. That can't be, you can't buy that with money. You can buy sex, but you can't buy intimacy with another person. You can't buy love. I think you don't have to be a PhD to know that fact. Love is actually, I've heard one of the quotes from a lecture I went to recently, which was that was about Schopenhauer again, where it was said that love isn't something that you can take; you can only receive love. And that's very that goes hand in hand with this third layer of Maslow's pyramid. That money does you absolutely no good in the three top layers of this pyramid, especially not when it comes to appreciation, self-worth, self-security, presentations, presenting yourself to the world, respect for others, respect of others. And the top is self-realization and self-actualization, which is moral, creativity, spontaneity, problem-solving abilities, lack of judgment, so that you don't, so that you accumulate something that makes you judge people less. That's also a value in itself that goes way above any physical needs or security needs of a human, but it is certainly something that people want. It is a part of the human will that if you have your physical needs and your security needs in place, then you will want to, according to Schopenhauer at least, then you will want to achieve these top layers: self-actualization, appreciation, and love. And the last one is acceptance of facts. That's also a part of self-realization. But the last thing that I wanted to state here is so that money can only buy you the bottom part of this pyramid. But apart from that goes recognition, knowledge, exercise, spirituality, and love/sex. So granted, you can buy sex, but can you really buy sex that is good? No, you can't do that. You have to accumulate that. So money is just one of the factors in the world, and that fulfill a human being. The other factors that are just as important as money is recognition, knowledge, exercise, spirituality, and love. And you can't buy that. So that's a pretty good argument. That is actually a very excellent argument for introducing universal basic income on the grounds that there will not be work for everyone in the future, massive unemployment, as well as a shortage of skilled workers. These circumstances that are actually not opposed to one another, that can actually exist in society especially in the future on an equal level, like next parallel to one another, and not opposite of one another. And that's why we need universal basic income in the future, because money is not everything that drives a human. as I said, recognition, knowledge, exercise, spirituality, and love is, at the end of the day, all these factors that are just as important. And the only reason why especially the US still hasn't implemented universal basic income is because they vastly overvalue the power of money in the US. And I think that's a good point to end this podcast right here. Thank you for listening in to this theory. There's a lot more to it, but that's what we could put into this hour of our podcast, Off the Corner. See you in the next episode.